if you needed to start a conversion thinking program inside an organization, we want to do CRO. They come back to you and it's like we're not growing in traffic and we need to convert this traffic at a higher rate, right? Which is the commonality of how in I'm not going to say in mature organizations CRO come about, but at least in my experience, that's been the common occurrence, right? We don't have money, budgets are shrinking. This is the traffic. It's not growing as fast as we hope. We need to improve conversion, which should have been at the beginning of the sentence, but it always comes back at the end. How would you go about instilling this mindset? You mentioned that word, instilling, and it stuck with me. How would you go about doing that on our organization? What does stakeholder buy-in look like? For example, you've done it before, so what are there things that usually come back and say, if I do A, B, C, and D, my program is most likely to get bought on or approved or what have you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about the best way to answer that. So I'm going to throw some things out there. One, nobody gets a mature program overnight. There's not a flip that you switch and say, suddenly we're perfect in all these areas and we're doing everything well. So understand that this is a process, and every organization and business is different. So what works as a program for one company may not be the right for another. So knowing that, there's going to be a lot of education and training across the org. So knowing what you're training for, knowing how to educate, knowing how to evangelize, and just kind of working with your org constantly to help everybody level up at the same time. That's going to be really important. The other thing that's going to be really important is that have a bias towards action. You'll hear companies say, you'll hear programs talk about velocity. And I'm a big believer in velocity. The more tests you run, the more you can learn. But you don't want to fall in this trap of just running tests for test's sake. So there's sort of this leapfrog effect where I've seen people, right off the bat, let's get the process going. Let's run tests. Let's learn fast. And then there's a point where, and this is the maturity happening, there's a point where they kind of say, okay, we're running a fair amount of tests, but they're not great tests. So let's kind of stay where we're at. Let's focus on quality, do more research, better ideation, things like that. And then once the quality gets better, they're like, okay, now we're doing better. How do we increase the velocity again? And so you find ways to increase the velocity. And then at a certain point, you're like, okay, we're going faster, we're learning faster, but now how do we get better tests? And so you kind of have this velocity, quality, and that's maturity happening. So I would say that's part of it too, is a bias towards action. Get out there, start doing things. And then somebody like me, you hire an expert or you bring an expert in, they can shorten that learning curve for you. If you didn't have an expert, you could learn over time, but if you bring in experts, they can help you learn faster and mature faster. So I would say it's that training. I would say it's that velocity and quality, velocity, quality. And how can you shorten the learning curve? By education, learning, bringing in experts.